Today is not about motivation, it is about truth. Stoicism teaches one hard lesson: you suffer more from your own judgment than from life itself. Many people are not weak. They are not incapable. They are simply undervaluing themselves. Here are 12 hidden signs you may be doing exactly that. Listen carefully. Apologizing is a habit that many people carry without realizing how deeply it affects their sense of self. Saying sorry for things that do not require an apology can slowly chip away at your confidence and make you undervalue your own presence. Every time you apologize unnecessarily, you send a quiet message to yourself and others that your existence, your actions, or your thoughts are a burden. This habit often starts subtly. You apologize for small things, like interrupting someone, asking a question, or expressing your opinion. At first, it may seem polite or considerate, but over time it becomes a pattern that reinforces a belief that your presence must be justified. You begin to associate your worth with how little inconvenience you cause, instead of recognizing that your presence in itself is valid. When you apologize unnecessarily, it is usually because of fear of judgment, fear of conflict, or fear of taking up space. This fear is natural, but it does not have to control you. Each apology that is not needed strengthens the habit of shrinking yourself to fit other people's comfort zones. You may start to notice yourself apologizing when you are expressing excitement, when you ask for help, or even when you need something basic, like a favor or time from someone else. In each of these cases, your apology is not about wrongdoing. It is about trying to make others feel more comfortable while silently minimizing your own importance. Another reason people apologize excessively is social conditioning. Many people are taught from a young age to be polite by saying sorry often, and this can carry into adulthood as an automatic response. While manners are not inherently bad, an automatic apology can undermine your authority and your presence in conversations, workplaces, or personal relationships. When you apologize too much, it can unintentionally teach others that you are unsure of yourself, or that your thoughts and needs are secondary. In professional environments, this can result in missed opportunities or a lack of recognition for your contributions, because people may see you as hesitant or insecure rather than competent. It is important to differentiate between apologies that are meaningful and those that are habitual. A meaningful apology occurs when you have actually caused harm or inconvenience, and it is accompanied by responsibility and a desire to make things right. Habitual apologies, on the other hand, are automatic and often unnecessary, rooted in the fear of being judged or disliked. Breaking the habit requires awareness. The first step is to notice every time you are about to say sorry, and ask yourself if it is truly warranted. If it is not, pause and consider other ways to phrase what you want to say. Instead of saying, "I'm sorry for bothering you," you can say, "Thank you for taking the time to listen," which expresses gratitude without diminishing your presence. Instead of "Sorry, I don't know much about this," try "Here's what I know," which communicates your contribution confidently. Another aspect to consider is how apologizing unnecessarily affects your internal dialogue. When you apologize for existing, you are silently telling yourself that your needs, opinions, and actions are less important than others. This weakens your self-respect and reinforces a mindset of scarcity, as if your value depends on constantly minimizing yourself. Over time, this can lead to a pattern of people-pleasing, where your identity becomes defined by avoiding conflict or discomfort for others, rather than honoring your own boundaries and principles. To overcome this, practice pausing before speaking and reflecting on whether an apology is needed. Observe your thoughts and feelings in situations where you automatically apologize. You might find that many of your apologies are rooted in imagined judgments rather than reality. Recognizing this can help you gradually shift toward a mindset where your presence, opinions, and actions are seen as inherently valid. This is not arrogance or rudeness, it is clarity and self-respect. It is about understanding that expressing yourself or taking up space does not require permission. Every time you choose to speak without unnecessary apology, you reinforce a habit of valuing yourself and your contributions. Over time, this change transforms the way others perceive you as well. People notice confidence not only in what you say but in the way you carry yourself. Speaking without automatic apologies communicates self-assurance, calmness, and clarity. It allows your interactions to become more honest, direct, and balanced. By removing unnecessary apologies from your speech, you also create space for more meaningful communication, where apologies are reserved for situations that truly require acknowledgement and accountability. This practice strengthens both your internal sense of worth and your external presence, encouraging you to stand upright in your actions and words. Setting boundaries is one of the most important skills for living a life of self-respect, yet many people struggle with it. When you do not establish clear limits, you allow others to take more than they should, which slowly erodes your confidence and your sense of value. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are rules you set for how you allow yourself to be treated. Without them, you risk being pulled in too many directions, drained by obligations that are not yours, and manipulated by the expectations or demands of others. Many people avoid boundaries because they fear conflict, rejection, or disappointment. But the truth is that failing to set limits creates a deeper, longer-lasting tension than a direct confrontation ever would. One of the reasons people struggle to set boundaries is a desire to be liked. From a young age, many are taught that pleasing others is a virtue, that saying yes to requests is a way to prove kindness or worth. While generosity is valuable, it is meaningless if it comes at the expense of your energy, time, or principles. Constantly accommodating others' needs while ignoring your own teaches the mind that your priorities are less important, and over time, this belief seeps into your perception of self-worth. You begin to measure your value by how much you sacrifice or how often you put others first, rather than by your own integrity or the strength of your decisions. Another challenge is unclear communication. People often feel uncomfortable being direct or assertive, so they hint at their limits, hoping others will understand. The problem is that unspoken expectations are rarely met. When boundaries are vague, people either overstep them or remain uncertain about how far they can go. This leads to frustration on both sides and reinforces a feeling of being undervalued. The mind interprets this frustration as proof that speaking up or asserting yourself is dangerous, which strengthens the cycle of self-neglect. Setting boundaries requires clarity and courage. It begins with knowing yourself, what you value, what you can tolerate, and where your limits lie. Once you are clear, it is a matter of communicating those limits calmly without guilt or apology. For example, if someone repeatedly interrupts your work or personal time, a clear statement such as "I am focusing on this task and cannot be disturbed right now" sets the boundary without aggression or blame. Over time, practicing this kind of communication reinforces the belief that your time, energy, and focus are valuable. Boundaries also extend to the mental space you allow others to occupy. Emotional boundaries are as important as physical ones. When someone tries to manipulate, criticize unfairly, or provoke guilt, having a strong internal boundary allows you to maintain equanimity. You can acknowledge the other person's perspective without internalizing their judgment or letting it dictate your self-worth. This internal discipline is essential because without it, the mind constantly reacts to external pressures rather than acting according to reason and principle. Many people confuse boundaries with selfishness, but the two are not the same. Selfishness ignores the needs of others entirely, while a boundary recognizes your limits while still being considerate. Boundaries ensure that you can give authentically without burning out. When your mind and body are protected, your interactions with others become more balanced and intentional. You no longer say yes out of fear or obligation. You say yes because you genuinely choose to. This clarity strengthens your sense of agency, allowing you to navigate life on your terms, rather than being swept along by the demands of others. Resistance from others is inevitable at first. People accustomed to you saying yes or accommodating their wishes may react with frustration, guilt-tripping, or even anger. This is not a reflection of your weakness or unkindness. It is a reflection of the change you are imposing on their expectations. Maintaining boundaries requires consistency. If you waver, even once, it teaches both your mind and others that limits are negotiable and that your energy is not sacred. Over time, consistent boundaries create a natural respect from those around you, because your presence and decisions are no longer up for debate. The process also strengthens self-discipline. By asserting your limits, you train your mind to recognize what is within your control and what is not. You no longer give away your energy carelessly or react impulsively to others' demands. Boundaries create a space where reason and intentionality can operate without interference from distraction, guilt, or fear. You learn to focus on what matters most to you, to act with purpose, and to protect the principles that define your life. Respecting your time and energy is one of the most overlooked aspects of living a life of clarity and purpose. Many people allow themselves to be constantly pulled in multiple directions, saying yes to requests they do not want to fulfill, agreeing to obligations they cannot handle, or sacrificing rest to meet the expectations of others. This pattern slowly depletes energy, creates resentment, and undermines self-respect. Time and energy are the only resources that cannot be replaced once spent. Every moment surrendered to unnecessary demands or distractions is a moment that cannot be reclaimed. Yet, many treat these resources as if they were infinite, ignoring the impact of careless allocation on both their productivity and their inner peace. One reason people fail to protect their time and energy is a desire to please others. There is often an internalized belief that saying yes to requests is a measure of goodness or worthiness. When this belief governs behavior, people give away their time without thought, believing that accommodating others will earn approval or affection. The problem is that this approach usually does not yield lasting respect or gratitude. Instead, it fosters exhaustion, anxiety, and a sense of invisibility, because the mind perceives that one's needs and priorities are secondary. Over time, this mindset teaches the subconscious that personal energy is expendable, which erodes confidence and diminishes the capacity for deliberate action. Another challenge is poor awareness of limits. Many people do not recognize how much they can handle before fatigue, stress, or distraction sets in. They overcommit, believing that they must do everything for everyone, only to realize that their energy is finite. This miscalculation leads to burnout, mistakes, and diminished effectiveness in all areas of life. It also diminishes the quality of interactions, because when energy is spread too thin, the ability to engage fully, respond thoughtfully, or contribute meaningfully is compromised. Learning to measure one's limits is crucial for cultivating focus, clarity, and intentionality in life. Protecting time and energy requires discipline and deliberate choice. It begins with recognizing that every commitment, every interaction, and every action comes at a cost. When you agree to something, you are implicitly deciding to spend your energy and attention on that thing instead of something else. This awareness allows you to prioritize with intention, choosing activities that align with your values and long-term goals, rather than reacting impulsively to external demands. The discipline of saying no to what does not serve your purpose is as important as the discipline of saying yes to what does. This practice also extends to mental and emotional energy. Certain conversations, relationships, and environments can drain attention and provoke unnecessary stress. Protecting your mind requires noticing which interactions leave you feeling depleted and learning to limit exposure to negativity, manipulation, or conflict. Setting emotional boundaries is not avoidance. It is the conscious allocation of mental energy toward growth, focus, and meaningful engagement. It is the recognition that not all battles are worth fighting, and that peace of mind is a resource that must be defended. Rest is an essential component of preserving energy, yet it is often undervalued. Many people feel guilty for resting or taking time for themselves, viewing it as laziness or indulgence. In reality, rest is strategic. A well-rested mind and body are more capable of sustained effort, clarity, and resilience. Refusing rest in the name of productivity or obligation is short-sighted. It undermines efficiency, creativity, and overall effectiveness. Those who learn to integrate periods of recovery into their lives gain more energy, focus, and capacity to act decisively when it matters most. Being mindful of energy also means evaluating where attention is directed. Social media, trivial distractions, and unnecessary obligations consume significant amounts of mental bandwidth. Allowing these to dominate attention diminishes the ability to engage with meaningful tasks, to think critically, and to respond intentionally. Prioritizing where your attention goes is as important as deciding where your time is spent. Because energy follows focus. By consciously choosing what deserves your engagement, you cultivate mastery over your mind and prevent depletion from external forces beyond your control. Learning to respect your time and energy is a practice that grows stronger with consistency. Each time you choose to prioritize your own resources over trivial obligations, You reinforce the habit of deliberate living. You develop resilience against external pressures, sharpen your capacity to act with intention, and strengthen the boundaries that protect both your physical and mental well-being. Speaking truth calmly and clearly is a skill that many overlook, yet it is essential for living a life of integrity and self-respect. People often hide their thoughts, dilute their opinions, or avoid expressing themselves fully because they fear judgment, conflict, or rejection. This avoidance may feel safe in the moment, but it erodes confidence and reinforces a habit of undervaluing oneself. Each time you suppress your voice or speak in a way that compromises clarity, you train your mind to accept that your perspective is less important, that your truth is negotiable, and that others' comfort is more valuable than your own integrity. Over time, this pattern creates internal tension, resentment, and a sense of invisibility, because expressing yourself dishonestly prevents genuine engagement with the world. One of the main reasons people fail to speak truthfully is the fear of negative reactions. Many assume that honesty will provoke anger, criticism, or social rejection. While these reactions are possible, avoiding truth does not prevent discomfort, it often prolongs it. Silence or half-truths may temporarily avoid conflict, but they create ongoing stress and ambiguity. The mind knows when it is compromising, and this knowledge undermines confidence and inner peace. Speaking truth does not guarantee ease in interactions, but it ensures alignment with principle and preserves self-respect, which is far more valuable than temporary approval. Another obstacle is the tendency to overcomplicate communication. People often believe that expressing truth requires perfect timing, elaborate explanations, or persuasive skill. While clarity matters, the essence of truth is simple. State what you think, feel, or know with honesty and calmness. Adding unnecessary justification or apology dilutes the message and signals uncertainty. A person who can express themselves clearly without embellishment demonstrates both confidence and control. Over time, this habit reinforces the understanding that your words have weight, that your thoughts are valid, and that expressing them does not require permission. Many people also fear that speaking truth will harm relationships. While it is true that honesty can sometimes create tension, failing to speak undermines trust in the long term. Relationships built on avoidance, omission, or compromise of principle are fragile. Genuine respect comes from authenticity, not passive compliance. When you express truth calmly and clearly, you establish standards for how you interact with others, signaling that your presence and perspective are valuable and deserving of consideration. This does not mean dominating conversations or disregarding others. It means contributing honestly without fear or hesitation. Speaking truth also strengthens internal discipline. The mind easily slips into exaggeration, justification, or dishonesty to avoid discomfort or responsibility. Training yourself to speak plainly, without distortion or concealment, cultivates control over impulse and ego. It teaches the ability to act with reason rather than reaction, to communicate with intention rather than habit, and to maintain integrity even under pressure. Over time, this discipline enhances self-confidence, because you no longer rely on others to validate your words or actions. You trust your judgment and your ability to express it. Clarity in communication also prevents misunderstandings. Many conflicts arise not from malicious intent but from miscommunication, assumptions, or vagueness. By stating your thoughts and feelings plainly, you remove ambiguity and reduce the chance of misinterpretation. This habit reinforces accountability both to yourself and to others. When others understand your perspective clearly, they can respond appropriately, and you maintain control over your narrative rather than letting assumptions shape your reality. Finally, expressing truth calmly allows for emotional regulation. Speaking from anger, fear, or frustration often clouds judgment and undermines credibility. Calmness ensures that your message is heard without unnecessary provocation. It signals composure, confidence, and self-mastery. People notice the difference between words delivered in haste or panic and words spoken with deliberation and poise. Practicing calm honesty strengthens your presence, encourages respect, and fosters interactions rooted in reason rather than reaction. Recent comparison with others is one of the most difficult but necessary steps toward valuing yourself. From a young age, people are taught to measure themselves against the achievements, possessions, or recognition of others. Social media, family expectations, and workplace culture reinforce the idea that your worth is determined by how you stack up against someone else. This habit of comparison is subtle yet destructive because it constantly shifts your focus from your own progress and values to the external metrics set by others. Every time you compare yourself, you allow someone else's circumstances, choices, or accomplishments to define your sense of self-worth, instead of measuring it by your own standards, effort, and growth. Comparison often leads to a sense of scarcity. When you see someone else succeeding, it is easy to feel that their gain diminishes your potential. The mind tricks itself into believing that recognition, happiness, or success are limited resources, and that someone else's achievements threaten your own. This thought is flawed, because life is not a zero-sum game. Each person's path is unique, and your value is not diminished by another person's accomplishments. Yet, the habit of comparison blinds the mind to this truth and cultivates envy, frustration, and self-doubt. Over time, these emotions accumulate, quietly undermining confidence and eroding the ability to act decisively on your own path. Comparison also encourages distraction. Instead of focusing on your own development, you monitor the progress, mistakes, and successes of others. This not only wastes time but also diverts energy from meaningful action. The mind becomes preoccupied with hypothetical scenarios. Am I doing enough? Am I behind? Should I have done this instead? These questions rarely serve growth. They are distractions that shift your attention from measurable, actionable steps toward your own improvement to endless speculation about what others are doing. By habitually looking outward rather than inward, you postpone meaningful progress and weaken self-trust. One of the reasons comparison persists is the need for validation. People look to others' achievements as benchmarks, believing that recognition from external sources is proof of worth. While acknowledgement can be gratifying, it is not a reliable measure of intrinsic value. Seeking validation externally makes your self-esteem fragile, contingent on outcomes beyond your control. When recognition is absent or delayed, the mind interprets as evidence of inadequacy. By anchoring your sense of value in your own standards rather than in the accomplishments or approval of others, you cultivate a stable foundation for confidence that is independent of external fluctuations. Letting go of comparison requires deliberate practice. It begins with awareness, noticing the moments when your thoughts drift toward measuring yourself against someone else. Awareness alone is powerful because it allows you to interrupt the pattern before it dictates your emotions or actions. The next step is reorientation, consciously redirecting attention to your own path, goals, and values. Reflect on what is within your control and what actions you can take to improve, rather than worrying about how you rank relative to someone else. This shift from external benchmarks to internal standards fosters clarity, focus, and self-respect. Another aspect of releasing comparison is gratitude. Appreciating your own progress, strengths, and accomplishments shifts perspective away from what you lack or how you fall short. Gratitude reinforces the understanding that your journey is unique and valuable on its own terms. It reminds the mind that life is not about competing with others, but about cultivating mastery over oneself. Each step forward, no matter how small, becomes a meaningful measure of progress rather than a point on a scoreboard relative to someone else. Comparison also interferes with long-term growth because it encourages imitation rather than authenticity. When you constantly measure yourself against others, you may be tempted to copy their paths, decisions, or behaviors to catch up or gain approval. This leads to a life driven by external models rather than internal principles. Authentic growth comes from understanding your strengths, weaknesses, and values, and aligning your actions accordingly. By focusing inward, you develop resilience, self-trust, and the capacity to act decisively, rather than being distracted or derailed by what others are doing. Finally, comparison cultivates impatience. People who measure themselves against others are often restless, seeking quick success or visible achievement. They fail to appreciate the process, effort, and timing that define their own journey. By releasing comparison, you cultivate patience, focus, and acceptance of your unique rhythm. You learn to measure progress based on your own metrics, which leads to steady growth, inner peace, and a sense of fulfillment rooted in reality rather than in imagined competition. Waiting for permission is a habit that quietly diminishes your potential, and undermines your confidence. Many people delay action, ideas, or decisions because they feel the need to be approved by others, believing that recognition, validation, or a go-ahead is necessary before they can step forward. This mindset fosters hesitation, fear, and a sense of powerlessness, because it places your ability to act outside of your own control. Life does not offer guarantees or formal invitations to pursue what matters. It rewards initiative, preparation, and decisiveness. Waiting for someone else to authorize your actions allows time to slip by, opportunities to pass, and potential to go unrealized. The need for permission often comes from social conditioning and fear. Many are taught to defer to authority, seek approval, or wait for confirmation before expressing opinions or taking risks. While guidance and advice have value, over-reliance on external approval creates dependency and weakens self-trust. The mind learns to doubt its own judgment, reasoning that someone else must assess readiness or validate capability. Over time, this reliance on permission reinforces the belief that your voice, ideas, and actions are secondary, creating a silent habit of undervaluing oneself. Waiting for permission also encourages procrastination. When the mind believes that action is contingent on external signals, it constantly postpones decisions, creating a cycle of delay. This is particularly harmful because life rarely waits for readiness or validation. Opportunities arise and fade quickly, and hesitation often means that someone else will take the initiative instead. By constantly waiting, you not only reduce your own impact but also give away influence, allowing circumstance and other people's choices to dictate your path. Another aspect of this habit is fear of failure or rejection. Many people postpone action because they worry that their efforts will be judged, criticized, or unsuccessful. While caution has value, waiting indefinitely for permission is rooted in avoidance rather than prudence. The reality is that failure, criticism, and challenge are inevitable in any meaningful pursuit. By taking action independently, you gain experience, learn lessons, and build resilience. Those who wait for permission often miss these opportunities for growth, remaining stagnant while the world moves forward around them. Breaking the habit of waiting requires awareness and intentionality. The first step is to recognize when hesitation is rooted in a desire for external validation rather than in rational assessment. Ask yourself whether you truly need another person's approval, or whether the delay is a product of fear or habit. This reflection helps distinguish between legitimate caution and self-imposed limitation. The next step is to act decisively within your own authority. Each time you make a choice, initiate a project, or speak your mind without waiting for permission, you strengthen self-trust and autonomy. Taking initiative also shifts the relationship between effort and reward. When you act without waiting for approval, your progress becomes a result of your own judgment, preparation, and commitment. You no longer rely on chance, authority, or social signals to validate your worth or determine your actions. This independence fosters confidence, resilience, and a sense of ownership over your life. Every successful step reinforces the understanding that you are capable of navigating challenges without needing external validation at every stage. Additionally, acting without waiting builds momentum. Waiting conditions the mind to passivity and hesitation, which slows progress and erodes motivation. By choosing to move forward when others are still deciding, you gain an advantage in experience, skill, and perspective. Momentum creates compounding benefits. The more you act, the easier it becomes to continue acting, and the more confident you become in your judgment. Conversely, habitual waiting entrenches inertia, making action progressively more difficult and fear more entrenched. The habit of waiting for permission also impacts relationships and opportunities. People who wait often appear indecisive, hesitant, or lacking initiative, which can affect how others perceive their competence or leadership. Taking independent action signals confidence, responsibility, and reliability. It encourages others to respect your judgment and opens doors that remain closed to those who hesitate. Acting without waiting also reduces dependency on external validation, allowing relationships, collaboration, and influence to be grounded in mutual respect rather than deference. Cultivating the ability to act without seeking permission strengthens inner discipline. It trains the mind to recognize what is within your control and to take ownership of your life. Each decision made, each action taken independently, reinforces the understanding that you do not need external approval to move forward. Your judgment, preparation, and courage are sufficient. This practice gradually rewires the mind from dependence to autonomy, creating a stable foundation for confidence, resilience, and a consistent growth. Staying silent to avoid conflict is a habit that many people adopt without realizing how much it costs them in terms of self-respect, clarity, and influence. At first, silence may seem like the safest choice, a way to preserve peace, avoid judgment, or sidestep arguments. The mind convinces itself that speaking up is risky, that voicing an opinion may offend, upset, or create tension. While this strategy may prevent immediate discomfort, it comes at a deeper cost. Over time, silence becomes a habit of shrinking oneself, of minimizing presence, and of allowing others' expectations and judgments to dominate your decisions. By avoiding conflict through silence, you may believe you are keeping the peace, but in reality, you are giving up your voice, your agency, and your integrity. The desire to stay silent often stems from fear of confrontation, rejection, or being misunderstood. People worry that asserting themselves will provoke anger or disapproval, and they equate silence with safety. Yet silence rarely resolves the underlying tension. It merely postpones it. Conflicts left unaddressed tend to grow in subtle ways, creating resentment, miscommunication, and misunderstandings. By refusing to speak when it matters, you allow assumptions, false interpretations, and unresolved issues to shape interactions, often causing far more strain than the original conflict would have. Another reason people stay silent is the desire to maintain harmony at all costs. Many equate peace with absence of confrontation, believing that avoiding disagreement is virtuous or considerate. While composure and patience are valuable, harmony built on suppression of truth is fragile. It comes at the cost of self-respect and diminishes the ability to engage honestly with others. True harmony arises when honesty, clarity, and understanding are present, not when issues are avoided or voices are stifled. By staying silent, you communicate indirectly that your thoughts, feelings, and needs are less important than avoiding discomfort for others, which subtly reinforces a habit of undervaluing yourself. Silence to avoid conflict can also distort internal perception. When you consistently withhold your opinions or feelings, the mind begins to accept that your perspective is secondary, unworthy, or irrelevant. This can gradually erode self-confidence and decision-making ability. Each instance of avoiding expression reinforces the belief that speaking up is dangerous or unnecessary, creating a cycle in which hesitation becomes the default mode of operation. Over time, this internalized pattern teaches the mind that your presence is conditional, dependent on pleasing or accommodating others rather than being rooted in principle. Breaking this habit requires awareness and deliberate practice. The first step is recognizing the moments when fear of conflict drives silence. Ask yourself whether staying quiet is a protective measure or a habit that diminishes your voice. Once you notice the pattern, the next step is to practice expressing yourself calmly, clearly, and without aggression. Speaking your mind does not require loudness or hostility. It requires clarity, honesty, and restraint. By communicating what you think or feel thoughtfully, you maintain control over your words and the situation, reducing the likelihood of unnecessary escalation while asserting your presence. Speaking up gradually builds confidence. Each time you voice your thoughts or set a boundary, you reinforce the understanding that your perspective has value, that conflict is not inherently destructive, and that discomfort is tolerable and manageable. Avoiding conflict may feel like safety, but it is a temporary illusion. Engaging thoughtfully, calmly, and consistently strengthens the mind, teaching resilience, courage, and the ability to navigate difficult interactions without fear or suppression. Silence also prevents meaningful resolution. When issues are ignored or unspoken, problems persist or worsen, and misunderstandings grow. By addressing matters directly and calmly, you create clarity for yourself and others. People are more likely to respect someone who communicates openly and thoughtfully, even if disagreement occurs, than someone who consistently suppresses their voice. Speaking up demonstrates accountability, responsibility, and self-respect, and it encourages others to engage authentically as well. Learning to manage the fear of conflict while speaking up is a form of discipline. It trains the mind to distinguish between situations worth engagement and trivial discomfort that does not require compromise. It strengthens the capacity to respond rationally rather than reactively, to maintain composure under pressure, and to act according to principle rather than impulse. Each time you overcome the instinct to remain silent, you reinforce self-respect, internal authority, and a clearer sense of your own value. Remembering that life is short and acting with purpose is one of the most important practices for valuing yourself and your time. Many people drift through their days without consciously recognizing the finite nature of existence. They postpone dreams, delay decisions, and tolerate situations that do not serve their growth because they assume time is endless. This illusion creates habits of procrastination, complacency, and undervaluation of personal potential. The truth is that every moment is irretrievable, and the longer you wait to act intentionally, the more opportunities pass by. Awareness of mortality is not meant to provoke fear, but to sharpen focus, prioritize effort, and cultivate a life aligned with principle and purpose. People often avoid contemplating the brevity of life because it is uncomfortable. Thinking about impermanence forces recognition of choices, responsibilities, and the consequences of inaction. Many prefer distraction, habit, or routine over reflection, convincing themselves that meaningful action can always come later. This habit of postponement gradually erodes self-respect because it allows circumstance, habit, or external pressures to dictate the flow of life, rather than deliberate choice. By ignoring the finite nature of time, you unintentionally allow triviality and fear to dominate decisions, limiting both growth and fulfillment. Another obstacle is the tendency to focus on what is safe or convenient rather than what is meaningful. People may remain in unfulfilling jobs, tolerate poor relationships, or avoid challenging goals because they fear discomfort or failure. This mindset sacrifices long-term growth for short-term comfort. By contrast, recognizing life's brevity encourages action toward what truly matters, prioritizing tasks, decisions, and relationships that align with values. Every choice then becomes a reflection of intentional living rather than passive survival, and every action becomes a conscious allocation of limited resources, time, energy, and attention. Understanding that life is short also changes the way you respond to obstacles. Many people become paralyzed by fear, worry, or indecision, believing that they have unlimited time to figure things out. This mindset can lead to chronic hesitation, where opportunities pass unclaimed and potential remains unrealized. By embracing the truth of impermanence, you cultivate urgency without panic. You learn to act decisively, to focus on what is within your control, and to avoid wasting effort on what cannot be changed. This clarity strengthens self-discipline, resilience, and the ability to navigate challenges with purpose rather than reaction. Acting with purpose requires aligning daily actions with long-term values and goals. It is not enough to merely recognize that time is finite. You must also structure life in a way that reflects this awareness. This means evaluating priorities, eliminating distractions, and making deliberate choices about how to spend your energy. When actions are guided by principle rather than habit or expectation, life becomes a series of intentional steps toward meaningful outcomes. Each moment invested with purpose reinforces self-respect, cultivates discipline, and deepens the sense that your existence matters. Many people underestimate the compounding power of small, deliberate actions over time. Living with purpose does not always require grand gestures or dramatic changes. It often begins with simple choices, dedicating time to growth, speaking truth, nurturing important relationships, and rejecting what diminishes your energy or focus. These seemingly small decisions accumulate, creating a life that reflects careful attention, reasoned choice, and conscious presence. Conversely, ignoring the limited nature of time allows trivial matters to dominate and creates a life shaped by chance, habit, and the priorities of others. Recognizing life's brevity also fosters courage. Fear of failure, judgment, or discomfort is diminished when you internalize that time is limited. You are more willing to take calculated risks, pursue ambitions, and stand for your principles because the cost of inaction becomes more significant than the cost of effort. This mindset reduces hesitation and strengthens decisiveness, as you begin to weigh choices based on their alignment with values rather than the opinions of others or fear of consequences. Finally, embracing the finiteness of life sharpens gratitude and appreciation. Each moment becomes more vivid, each experience more meaningful, and each relationship more precious. This awareness encourages focus, presence, and authenticity, guiding decisions toward actions that are deliberate, intentional, and aligned with the highest version of yourself. By internalizing the truth that time is limited, every choice, effort, and action takes on greater significance, reinforcing a life of purpose, clarity, and value.